Are you the fanatic we're looking for? Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, part of the Draft Professor Podcast Network. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of seconds. Hello, everybody. Hello. This is Jim. I am joined by Brian and Jacob, and we are going to be doing some offensive lineman scouting reports. So before we get going, Brian, how are you doing?
Doing okay. I think I'm starting to get a little sick here, but otherwise I'm doing okay.
Jacob, how are you?
Yeah, I'm avoiding that the sick bug right now, but it's definitely going around down here as well. But I'm doing good.
Fantastic. Yeah, I guess I don't leave my house enough to worry about getting sick. I just have to worry about the kids and the people that come in and out of my house. So,
that's getting it from the kids. Kids pick it up at school and bring it home.
Cool. Well, we have 6 offensive linemen we're going to cover. We're going to kick it off with Michael Gonzalez from Louisville. So, Brian, you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, sure. So, he's a pretty interesting player because he's played. He has a lot of experience. He's played 4 different positions. Left tackle, right tackle, left guard, right guard. So, of course, that's obviously something that NFL is going to like. Like those guys that have a lot of versatility, can play different positions. Fill in emergencies and that type of stuff. Ideally, I think he's going to be an interior guy. Guard. I don't think he's center, but I think ideally, left guard, right guard. He's been a starter since 2022, so he's again a lot of experience playing time. So what I noticed was he moves pretty well when he's used as a puller. But sometimes when he's pulling, he misses his assignments. His aiming points are off or something. He's missing his, those second level defenders, those linebacker stuff. He's missing them. He looks good on the move, but he's missing them a lot of times. But then, his ability to counter and mirror the defenders sometimes is a little hit or miss. He's not always alert in pass pro. There's times I've noticed where he's trying to help out his left tackle and then his center gets beat or somebody flashes past him and he's not paying attention type of thing. Sometimes that happens or the guard his center gets beat and he doesn't notice because he's helping the tackle or vice versa. And then it kind of goes with that. He tries to help his teammates too much. He's not being focused on his assignment. And then but he moves his feet well in pass protection. But his upper body does show some stiffness when he's on the move. His lower body moves okay, but his upper body does look a little stiff. And then, but he doesn't get very much movement in the run game. He's mostly kind of like a positional, kind of wall you off type of run blocker. And then also his arms do look a little short, which is also why I think he's going to be just an interior guy. And I just noticed his anchor needs more work. He needs some more sand in his pants, as the saying goes. Let's see what else. He can be a bit lumbering when he's moving down the field. His football intelligence is a little bit, I'm questioning it a little bit sometimes, but he does show some flashes of good intelligence. It's a little hit or miss sometimes. And then, but he does play good balance. He doesn't get overextended. He plays with himself. My funny note was here I got from last season. I was watching someone's from last season. Was his left tackle Willie Tyler really hung off the dry last year pretty bad. There was a number of times his left tackle just got beaten. He had to try and recover and help and save the day basically. But his block sustain and his grip strength does need some work as well. And then he does have some trouble recovering when he gets beat. But he has shown he can move smoothly, pass off stunts and pass pro. And then he will give some to ground and power rushers, but he holds up for the most part. He'll give some ground.
And what round grade do you have on him?
I have a midday 3, like 5th round. Maybe you can sneak into the 4th, but like 5th round, maybe 6th round at the worst.
Cool. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, when I look at a lot of this draft stuff, obviously I do it with a Cleveland Browns focus. Just that's where my fandom lies. That's the website I write for a Browns website. So he's the kind of lineman that a lot of teams are going to love just because the Browns need a guard, they need a tackle, and it's oh wow, we could add depth to every position. Brian touched on that at the top of it, and I just think it's invaluable. We saw in 2020 when the Browns had such a great run game, we had Chris Hubbard play right guard, right tackle, play some snaps at left tackle, and do all three very well. Like when Wyatt Teller was out, while Jack Conklin was out. Like these are really good players that he was stepping in for, and he was keeping up that level of play. I think Gonzalez can get there. I don't think he's there. Brian, you touched on a lot of it. Like, I think he's got functional strength. Like, I think he's got some power, some strength. But at 305, I'd like about 315, 320. Kind of like if we can add a little bit of size and stuff there. And then, like you said, he picks up a little bit of ground. If you can kind of shore that stuff up on the inside, I think he stays for work, but to your point, he does it a little too extreme sometimes because he's like, oh, is there a guy over there? And he goes, oh crap, that guy just shot in the cap and he's like going to go by him. And it's like, I think he's trying to be a leader and trying to be like a captain of the offensive line. He takes it a little too far sometimes. It's like
right.
A little bit like that. I love the leverage and pad level he plays with, like especially as a run blocker, because you talked about it. He's not necessarily going to move you out of the way, but he can use that leverage and kind of pad level to make sure that he locks you up. He's just, I'm not going to pave this giant rushing lane, but I want to make sure you don't crash inside and close it completely. And I just think sometimes he leans a little bit on defenders. Sometimes I think he's a little over his skis sometimes just because he's trying to make something happen more so than what he can traditionally do. But I've got probably around 5 on him. I think he's just got to clean up some of the stuff with kind of hand placement, maybe a little bit of footwork work and stuff like footwork work and some stuff like that. But anytime I can find a guy that is good at both, I think he's good at pass protection, good at run blocking, and can play multiple positions on day 3. I think there's going to be a lot of interest for him in that regard.
Yeah, and I definitely want to echo, if you're not a starting offensive lineman in the NFL, it's really helpful to play every position. And I think, because I think most NFL teams stress 8 offensive linemen for game day. Yeah, so you'll have a backup tackle, and then you want somebody that can pretty much play everywhere. Right? Those are really the 2 types of offensive lineman backups. So if you can play everywhere, I know Buffalo notoriously has players like that sitting at offensive lineman 8 or 9 on the roster, right? And you can tell, like, if a fan is trying to figure this out, watch where an offensive lineman plays in preseason.
Yes.
Because often it'll be a series or 2 at tackle, a series or 2 at guard, series or 2 at the other guard, and watch that. And it sounds like Michael Gonzalez is a player that's going to be able to stick to a roster because he has that position flexibility.
Make sure you also learn to snap if you're one of those guys, because people that can snap, that's underrated. Like, some people take take advantage of that, and it's like, hey, I can play tackle and snap. It's like, oh, you don't see a lot of that, so it's like, okay, all right.
Yep. And did he have any bowl game invites that we knew of?
I'm looking that up right now, because I was just going to check because I didn't know. Michael Gonzalez.
Yeah, he may have. I'm not sure offhand.
Okay. Well,
it would have been lower tier ones probably. But.
Yep. So, Brian, you want to kick off Gavin Byers from Baylor?
Yeah. So Byers, he's a big guy. I have him listed at 319, but either way, he's 310 plus. He's had some versatility to him, but most of his experience was at right tackle. He's played a little bit of left guard, a little bit of right guard, not a lot. I think he started a couple games of both or something like that. But again, shows the versatility. Okay, things are something like that, of course. He hasn't played much this year. I'm not sure what happened, if it was an injury. I tried to look into it. I couldn't find anything. I'm not sure if it was an injury or he just got beat out. Because they have 2 new starters. I was looking. Baylor has a new starter at left guard and right guard, so I'm not sure if he got beat out or he's dealing with some injuries or something or other. But so anyway, so I went mostly off his 2023 film. But he comes out of his stance way too high. So he a lot of times ends up losing the leverage battle to power rushers, especially when he's playing on the inside of guard. But he has a good anchor when he does set it in pass pro. But he does lack foot quickness to stay with this, speedy edge rushers, which is also why I think he's likely going to play guard in the NFL. He can move some, but he is slow and a bit lumbering. His lower body does look a little bit stiff. kind of similar to Gonzalez. His aiming point needs some work. Sometimes he's missing those blocks. Is just his aiming point is off when he's on trying to block downfield, and especially in the run game. So, and then he really whiffs on a lot more blocks than he should. He just in run blocking and pass pro. But he does play with it. He's played with his head over his feet too much, and so gets off balance. He gives up easy pressure to both his shoulders at guard, either inside and outside sometimes. And then, but he has trouble staying with athletic interior rushers at times. His length looks okay for a guard. Looks too short for a tackle though, likely. And then, but he looks more comfortable in the run game when he's playing. How would you say it? Like vertical in a way, like playing basically man run blocking, just blocking straight ahead, attacking that nose tackle or that 3-tech or whatever. And then, but he does have sometimes trouble changing direction. And I notice he's on the ground a little bit too much. He falls down too much. And he gets he turns his body too much when he needs to stay more square to the line of scrimmage. And he's getting beaten by that way too. And he does bend at the waist. I noticed that too. So he needs to work on that. But he does have big hands, and he shows flashes of good grip strength. And he's shown he can reset his hands when his hands do get knocked away. When he gets locked in. But he looked on film, he looked more comfortable at tackle. But again, like I said, I think he's going to have to move inside. I have like a late day 3 grade on him. If he cleans up the technical stuff, he can be a decent, backup interior offense lineman.
Jacob, what do you think?
I didn't have Byers. I was not able to. That was the one I wasn't able to get to.
Okay. Next, Brian, you want to kick off Jager Burton from Kentucky?
Sure. So again, another versatile guy. The thing that teams will like, he has center and guard experience, so he can snap. So of course, teams will like that. He's been a 3-year starter. He is a redshirt junior, so there's a possibility he goes back. But he has good size and good frame. He's a really aggressive run blocker. And he keeps his legs driving when he is run blocking. And then you can see he wants to impose his will on the defender. He wants to ground them into the dirt type of guy. A lot of people like that. But so he's one of those aggressive type of run blockers. His length looks okay, maybe slightly below average, but it looks okay enough for interior. But he's explosive off snap. I noticed he can be a lead puller, in the run game, in the run game, trying to bury those guys. But he looks pretty athletic when he's in the open field. And then, but he does need to move his feet better when he gets beaten. I noticed at times the pass pro, he's getting beaten. He's just kind of reaching out to the guy instead of moving his feet. So he needs to work on that, moving his feet better when he gets getting beaten to try and recover better. And then he does his ability to reset his hands needs some work when he gets his hands knocked away. He needs to be better at that. He's a little slow at resetting. And then, but he shows flashes of being able to do it, of course. I've noticed he does use his hands independently, which is good, of course. Double teams like that. But he does need to work on his accurate timing of his punch. Sometimes a little off. And then he needs to improve his awareness, his football intelligence, because sometimes he gets too locked into his guy he's back with that he is not paying attention to what's going on around him. And sometimes the guy next to him will get beat, and he's not noticing it. But then he can really sink his anchor against power, so he holds up well against power in the pass game. And then he can really dig his heels in. I notice he doesn't give up much ground to power rushers. And then once he locks in, defenders have trouble getting off of him. And then he does need to work on his body positioning and moving his feet more and staying between the quarterback and the ball carrier and whatnot. But he's shown flashes of being able to torque his body into different angles, to hold his defender, stuff like that. So that's always good to being able to hold up where you can torque your body when a defender's kind of beating you. You're able to still kind of hold on, even though you're at a funky, body position. And then, but his aggressiveness does kind of bite him in the butt sometimes, where he gets a little too aggressive sometimes, and he gets his shoulders over his feet, and he loses his balance and stuff like that. And he does, sometimes he'll duck his head, and the defenders will swim moves are kind of somewhat effective on him because he does kind of duck his head and get his shoulders over his feet at times. But yeah, I like him, and he looks pretty good. I think he might probably go back just because he's a redshirt junior and all that type of stuff. But if he does come out, I probably have like an early to mid day 3 grade on him. But I think it probably I'm going back.
So Jacob, what do you think?
One thing that I really like that I saw kind of different from him was looking at some of the scouting reports coming out of summer and going into the year. A big note was him not playing physical by nature. And I think he kind of cleaned some of that stuff up, like you talked about, just like where I think I don't know if willing is the word, but he's more willing to do it now and more ready to mix it up and be physical. I think sometimes he oversets. I think that's where it really gets at me. Oversets a little bit and kind of struggles in the phone booth area, but I think he's quick and explosive off the line. I mean, like he gets out of there, gets into his sets, and especially now that he plays a little bit more physical, right into the contact, right into getting in there really quickly. I think the guard center kind of situation is just, again, we're going to say this a lot about these guys on these podcasts. If you can play multiple positions, I mean, the Browns drafted Luke Whippler, who could only play center, had only played center at Ohio State, and immediately we're playing him at guard in the preseason because that's the way the teams they view them as interior offensive linemen, even more so than guards versus centers. And they're just like, so having that flexibility and having already snapped, it's like, yeah, that's good. A little bit more power, maybe, man. Just like a little bit more size and strength, a little bit to play inside. But he's got the mentality, he's got the drive, the want to, and I think he's a really good athlete. So I'm with you in a sense. If he goes back, he can be a day 2, day 1 talent lineman. He's got that ceiling. And that ceiling is there for him if he can just refine some of those technical things and just work on oversetting and work on your footwork a little bit and some things that can be coached up. If he goes and works on the things that can be coached up, the physical tools are there to be a really good offensive lineman.
Okay. Michael Todd from Fayetteville State. Jacob.
Yeah, I got some Michael Todd. I don't got a ton on him. It can be very difficult. One thing that stands out whenever I watch these really small school people is where they rank them. Anytime you look at like, hey, who are the guys that went to a school you've never heard of that I should know while I'm watching college football this year while I'm doing drafting? Michael Todd Jr.'s name came up multiple times, multiple different analysts, multiple different lists. Always a good thing for me. It's got to get a little bit heavier in the pants, though. 295. Sometimes I think he's even a little bit lighter than that because of the length. I think he's really long. I love the arm length. They 6'5" and 3/4. He may be closer to 6'6", but it doesn't really get to the 300 pounds. But he wants it. That dude wants it. He wants to mix it up with you. He wants to play inside. He wants to drive you out of there. And he does it at the level of competition that he's playing. He's got the play strength, the power, and the drive to get it done. I just think you can add a little bit in the pants because once he goes against NFL guys, he's not going to be able to overwhelmingly overpower him the way he is able to do it to the guys at the level that he's playing at. He's kind of that guy that you take in like the 6th or 7th round or becomes a priority UDFA because you're like, hey, this guy's got some really nice tools. It's got a really good physical mindset. He just hasn't played very good competition. He's not refined with his hand placement and his footwork. But I think he's got the mentality and I think the drive. You can't I had a boss that used to tell me that you can't teach drive and commitment to working hard and doing things like that. You can make somebody work harder, but you can't make them want to work harder. And he's got that. He's got that drive to be great. And that's why he's like somebody I would love to stash on a practice squad as a rookie and just get him those reps.
Cool. Brian, what do you think?
Todd was one of the guys I wasn't able to get film on.
Okay.
But, I'll watch him eventually, but if I can. But
yep. No worries. Okay, and we're preparing for the big finish. We got a couple of guys from LSU. So Emery Jones, Brian, you want to kick him off?
Yeah. So he's always got his head on a swivel. He's always looking for targeted defender to engage. He has a solid anchor. He holds up well to power. He'll take his defenders to the ground. He'll put them on the ground. He's one of those type of guys. He wants to bury their guys. He plays he plays through the whistle. Kind of goes with that. But he can't get over his skis sometimes, allowing defenders to pull him. He keeps his hands nice and high and tight inside him, and in pass pro. I find like his arm length is kind of average for a tackle. But he will miss a strike sometimes. He still needs to work on his accuracy and his aiming points, which can throw him off balance a little bit sometimes. And he shows flashes being able to reset his hands. Still needs to get better, but he's shown he can do it. And he does seem comfortable and confident when he's moving forward, attacking instead of versus when he's going, side to side and pass pro and stuff like that. And then he does a good job of communicating, passing off defenders with, his teammates. And then he shows flashes of patience when he's in pass pro, although he can still be a little too aggressive sometimes. And then he does need to work on his posture with his back and his stance and, keeping his butt down and stuff like that. But long term, I think he's an interior guard. He's a guard, but who can kick out the tackle, with injuries and when needed and stuff like that. But I think long term, he's a guard.
And where do you have him on your board?
Probably early day 2.
Okay. Jacob, what do you think?
We went into this season. It's been and we'll talk about the other offensive tackle at LSU in a second. But we went into the season, that was pretty much a lot of people wanted to was Campbell and Emery Jones as the top tackles on both sides of the line. A lot of people had it that way. And now we're not sure either one of them can play tackle after the year, which is really. It's just funny.
It's funny. It is funny. It's okay to laugh. It is funny. Yes.
Yeah. He's still a good player. It's I'm not saying you're not a good player. I just wonder things like that. There was a comp that I saw the other day for Emery Jones of Tyler Smith coming out and now playing guard for the Cowboys. I can see it. I'm not 100% there. He's not quite there, but I do think the mentality is the same. I remember scouting Tyler Smith, and that dude's like, "I'm gonna put you in the dirt. I want to put your face in the dirt on every snap." And I think that's what Emery Jones is looking to do. I think that he can handle speed rushers and power rushers. I think sometimes he gets a little stiff, and sometimes he may let him just get a little bit past him explosively. I think the pad level, he's got to work on it a little bit, just because you'll see that anybody over 6'5", you'll get that complaint. Oh, they kind of stand up. It's no shit. They're over 6'5", and they're going to have a little bit of a trouble with there. But I really do love the core strength. I think it starts there for me. Powerful run blocker who gets off the line of scrimmage with good burst. I think he can do a lot of those things well. And all those things, as I start to say them, it just makes me go guard. This is what a guard does. I wonder about anchoring the outside as a tackle in pass pro. It kind of can. I think they can get his outside shoulder. I think you can get his outside shoulder and kind of take control and get around him some. And that's why, again, I say maybe we should slide him into the guard. You don't necessarily have to put yourself on an island like that. That's kind of where I am. But you got to be an elite speed rusher. Let me say that. If you're just you have to be an exceptionally explosive athlete, because I don't want it to sound like I'm saying he's a below average athlete, because that's not the case with Emery Jones. It's not exactly what he wants to win with, but he is a good athlete. He is there. I think the footwork and hand placement is where I'd like him to clean some stuff up. Footwork, hand placement, cleans that stuff up. Great. He's got the mentality. He's got the size, the power. I really like him as a guard. Just those explosive speed rushers that he's going to see a lot at the NFL can exploit him if he's a tackle. I don't think you're going to see that interior. If he's in the interior, I don't think. Now, you put a guy like Myles Garrett or something crazy like that, yeah, we're all going to struggle there, man. But I don't know. I love the blend of size, power, and athleticism that he does have, especially if you tell me that he's a guard.
Okay, and
I forgot to mention, sorry, real quick. Yeah, sorry. I actually have confirmed measurements on him. He's 6'4.5", 319, with 34-inch arms. So just for anybody wondering.
That's better than what I thought the arm length was. Maybe I'm mixing him and Campbell up again. I keep doing that.
Well, and then Jacob, you want to kick off offensive lineman Will Campbell from LSU.
So I'm writing up a film room over at the OBR.com with a co-writer on the offensive tackle class, and we were discussing Will Campbell just last night, talking about it, and the what you thought about him going into the year and what other people said about him early on, and then there were some struggles, some kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. My co-author Sam Pennick said, I wanted to like him more than I did. And I think that kind of sticks out when you watch him. And that's why I kind of lean towards putting him into guard, because buddy, he cannot handle elite speed rushers. Like, those guys are going to zip off that line of scrimmage and get around him in a hurry. Like, I just don't know that he can win on the outside with a speed rusher that's just overly athletic. I think he's got good balance, size, leverage, does all those things. He's got the shorter arms. There's a big concern there right now. People love him as a leader. I've heard a lot of really encouraging things about a leader and a football character kind of guy. And it's like, oh, you want Will Campbell on your team. He's got plenty of experience. The thing about it is, with Will Campbell, I think you get a high floor, low ceiling player. I'm not sure what things that, because I like him from a technical standpoint. I like his footwork. I like his hand placement. I like the leverage that he plays with. So all the coachable things like that, I like them. They can always get better. Let me preface that. I'm not saying the guy can't become a better player, because he can. It's just some of the athleticism, some of the getting into his stance, firing off the line of scrimmage. I just don't know that it's there. He's a strong base, strong power. You're not going through his chest. I'm not worried about that. He handles those just fine. But when you watch his tape, it's like nothing jumps off the film that's overtly negative, but also nothing jumps off the film that's like, wow, that is a franchise left tackle. I think you can try him at tackle if you want to, but I would draft him believing he's going to have to play guard. That's where I would go with him. But again, I have no problem with you going after high floor players. I have no problem with that. I just think he's kind of got a limited ceiling, and part of that is because I think he's going to have to make a living inside. But Brian, you talked about it with Emery Jones. Yeah, he can still kick out if he needs to, if there's an injury there and you want to move him out. But I think Will Campbell is a very high floor player, but I just think he's a guard, and I just think his ceiling's kind of limited. Maybe I'm way off base on that, but.
And okay, well, I'll let Brian do his scouting report, but I'm going to come back to something you just said when Brian's done, Jacob, because I think there's a good discussion to have with Jones and Campbell. But Brian, go ahead on Campbell, please.
Yeah. So actually, I'll start real quick on the. So we do have confirmed measurements on him as well. 6'5" and 6'8", so almost 6'6", 319. So for my report, and supposedly his arms are 32 and 7/8 or something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see. But usually when they're about that size, usually they stretch them out a little bit. By the time they get the combine, so they'll probably be 33.
Yeah.
There's special coaches they hired to teach them how to stretch out their length, which is interesting that there's an industry for that. But anyway, so yeah. So as we all know, he has a really funky and weird high stance. He's basically almost standing up. Everybody knows that, of course, but it's always interesting. But and you see that first, you're like if you've never seen it before, you've never watched him before, you look at it, you're like, oh, this is not going to work. This guy's, and then you watch and he's fine. It just works for him. It's weird, but it works for him. I kind of mentioned in the group chat about Randall McDaniels. It's kind of like Randall McDaniel. Randall McDaniel had a super weird stance when he playing guard for Minnesota, like 20 years ago, something like forever ago, but it worked for him. So it works for Campbell. I think he probably could get his stance maybe a little bit lower. Some team may want to get him a little bit lower, but I wouldn't, have him mess with it too much, because like I said, it does work for him. But it could still leave him susceptible to, power rushers who can get really good leverage. But like I said, so far it's worked for him, so I wouldn't mess with it unless he starts having trouble with it. But I notice he will occasionally give some ground to power rushers, but he can reset and he can anchor fine. So it doesn't, like I said, doesn't come too much issues. he's not perfect, of course, technically, but he's really far along. He's got really good, especially for a junior. He's really far along. He keeps his hands inside. He moves his feet well. He looks coordinated. He's got good grip strength. Once he's latched on, defenders have trouble getting off of him. He's patient in his pass sets. He can block on the second level. He's smooth and efficient in his pass sets too. And he usually keeps himself square to the defender. He's a good, solid run blocker. I know some people say he's a really good run blocker. I don't see really good, but I see pretty good run blocker. Like definitely more than good enough to play at NFL level. Probably better than average at the NFL level, but not like I wouldn't say he's an elite run blocker. And then he keeps himself between even with when he has the run game. He keeps himself between the defender and the running back. He keeps himself alert and pass pro. He does a good job of recognizing stunts. To me, he looks more quick than fast. I do just notice sometimes the issue, like Jacob mentioned, with the speed rushers. But I still kind of think he can possibly stay at tackle. We all remember Slater for the Chargers. He had 33-inch arms when he came out and he was playing tackle. He's fine. So, like I said, I would start him out at tackle, and then if it doesn't work, then just move him inside. But I still think he can play tackle at the NFL level. But I do agree, like he has a high floor, kind of low ceiling type of player, but his floor is like super high. So it's like, it's not like he's those players you hear about that, like, oh, when you hear high floor, low ceiling, people think, oh, he's kind of just an okay player. No, he's really good. It's just, and of course there's always room for improvement, like you said. But I don't think it's like this huge ceiling where, he's going to for sure become like potentially an all-pro. Like, but
my thing with his level of high floor is I don't think he's going to be a bust. Like, he might not be a Hall of Famer, but I don't think he's going to just be one of those guys that, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Of course, I'm blanking, but sometimes you just bet on traits, like in the way that you did with Anthony Richardson. There wasn't a lot of tape with what Anthony Richardson could do in college, so you took a massive chance on that. That's not going to happen with Will Campbell. He's going to at least be a league average player, either inside or outside, for an extended period of time in my mind. And that's a good thing. That's like especially in the first round, finding a guy that is going to be a good player is what you're trying to do.
So, and you guys are hitting on, maybe I have let's say several follow-up questions, and I'm primarily directing it towards Will Campbell, but if it also applies to Emery Jones, chime in. So with Will Campbell, do you see a day one starter? Is he going to come in as a rookie and start? I'm not suggesting the position. I'm suggesting, are you drafting him with the expectation that he starts in 2025?
Yeah, definitely.
Brian, what do you think?
He's for sure. He's ready to be a starter. His technical is enough. He can be a starter as a rookie. Right. Or he should be a starter.
Okay. So then the next question is so if you're planning to have him start, is it best to say we're going to see if you can start at two positions, or we're going to say you're going to start at, we're going to pencil you in at guard, or we're going to pencil you in at tackle? Because here would be like offensive line needs a lot of chemistry, right? And they don't get a lot of contact in camp, right? You're allowed one contact practice every 5 days or something, right? I think that's how it averages out. So is it better for him to get all those reps at guard coming right in day one, or is it better for him to get some reps at tackle and then try to build the chemistry at guard later in camp or as the regular season starts, if you wanted him as a starter? What do you think is the better path to success?
I think, like I said, I think you start him off at tackle and see how he looks, early in training camp. And kind of similar, I think this is kind of how the Packers usually do it, when they draft these type of guys who have, tackle guard versatility or guard center versatility or whatever, is they'll kind of practice you primarily at one position, but they'll throw some snaps at the other person just to see how it looks. And then they'll adjust it as training camp goes. Like if that first position works good, they'll kind of peter out that second position a little bit. They'll still get snaps because they like their guys versatile. So they'll still give you some snaps at other position, but they'll mostly get the snaps at the one position. But then, of course, like I said, if that first position, it's not really working out, but the second position is looking okay, then they'll kind of, again, switch the snap count more heavily towards the other position. So I think that's kind of a good way to go is start off like heavily. I would say start heavily more tackle and just a little bit of guard and just see how it goes, and then adjust the snap counts or rep counts, whatever, depending on how he looks.
So, Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you exactly on that one because I've seen it with like when the Browns drafted DeJuan Jones originally, they had Jedrick Wills at the left tackle, Jack Conklin at the right tackle. Those guys were there, and he spent most of the offseason workouts in the early part of training camp just splitting, just being on the right side and being on the left side. Like they put it back there, and we've seen that with pretty much every offensive lineman they've drafted. Like I said, with Luke Whippler, they immediately started giving him reps at guard, and then the preseason came and he was playing guard. Like they were putting him in that position to be like, where do you fall? You know, it's like, I'm with you because you're going to draft him with something in mind. If you draft him, you're going to be like, I'm drafting you to be a guard or I'm drafting you to be a tackle, whatever it is. The Browns drafted Jedrick Wills, who was a right tackle, to be a left tackle. That is the mentality they went into it. So you're going to go into a mentality with that. And your immediate thing, I think whatever you think he is, he needs to start there. That is where you need to start, wherever you drafted him from, because you're probably drafting him to start in 2025. But my co-host over on my Browns pod always says, let him fail outside in. So if you believe there's any chance he's a tackle, give him the main reps at tackle, but make sure you give him reps at the other positions just in case that doesn't work out.
Okay. And so, Brian, if Green Bay drafts Campbell in round 1, you okay with the pick?
I don't think they would, but because they just drafted – they already kind of set a tackle, but
if he falls that far in the draft, right? Because we would expect Green Bay to be taken in the 20s. If Green Bay grabs him in the 20s, you okay with that?
Yeah, no, I understand where you're getting. I'm just kind of thinking, kind of stalling a little bit to think.
Got it. Yeah, you're filibustering because Jacob's about to get the same question, but his question's a little bit harder.
Oh, damn.
Right. I mean, I guess I'd be okay with it. I think they would put him at left tackle and let him compete with Walker, and whoever wins, and then maybe whoever loses, maybe move to right tackle and Tom moves Zach Tom inside. I don't know, because slight rant, but I think Zach Tom has like Pro Bowl potential at center. But I think he's a solid right tackle. I think his Pro Bowl potential at center. But
the premise of my question is, if he falls to about the 20th or 24th pick in the draft, you think he's a value pick there. You don't expect to see him, but if he's there, you're okay with the pick.
Yeah, I think Packers Twitter would kind of implode, or whatever. People would be freaking out, but yeah, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
So, Jacob, Campbell to the Browns, and I know the Browns need offensive line help in round 1, right around pick 8 to 12. What do you think? So,
also, Browns Twitter would implode because Browns Twitter is always waiting to implode. It's just what they do. Like, there's nothing going on today, but it'll implode. I guarantee it at some point today. Because there's going to be the people that say there's no way he's a tackle. And there's going to be the people that say you don't take a guard in the top 10. If Kelvin Banks is there and you pass on him for Will Campbell, I'm going to have a bit of an issue with that because Kelvin Banks is my offensive tackle 1, and I lean towards Campbell being a guard. But if you draft him, like I said this about him probably like a month or two ago when everybody was like starting with he's a guard talk. The Browns need to rebuild from center to the left. I'm good with Wyatt Teller and Jack Conklin on the right side, but they need a new left guard and a new left tackle and even a center. But so people thought I was just I was trying to be spicy with this take or whatever. If Kelvin Banks is gone and you draft him, I don't have a problem with it, even if he ends up being a guard, because you need it too. Like you need both. Now make sure you draft another tackle down the line, or you have a veteran that can play left tackle if Campbell has to be a guard. But we talked about it. I don't feel like he's going to be a bust because he's going to find a home somewhere. And you can never, ever have too many good offensive linemen. The Browns have been struck by injuries for 2 years in a row, especially at tackle, and it's just been abysmal. So if Banks is there, yes, I'll have a problem with it because I think he's a true clear-cut left tackle and he could be a franchise guy. But if you draft Will Campbell and you even if you tell me he's a guard, I think he's going to be a really good to great guard. So no, I would not have a problem with him because I will take all the good offensive linemen you can give me.
Okay. So then, and now you're projecting into my next question. You just walked right into it. Okay. So we're New England. And Campbell is on the board for New England's pick in round 2.
Oh.
And New England needs 4 offensive linemen.
Great.
So what would New England's draft strategy be if they take Campbell and then they go to round 3? So would New England say, I need to double dip and grab another tackle because Campbell's more likely to be a guard? Or does New England say, we got to steal in round 2 with Will Campbell, and they can go in it with an interior offensive line? So if you were New England and he's there in round 2, what would be your mindset in round 3 if you were the Patriots for offensive line?
I'd still. The thing about it that's crazy is there are so many guard tackle flexibility guys on day 2 and day 3 of this draft. So I would just take another one of them. I mean, that's what I would do. I would double. They need 4 offensive linemen. I'd draft 2 or 3 of them. My thing is get all the talented offensive linemen and figure out how to put all your best 5 on the field, whatever that looks like. Campbell at tackle, guard. Maybe you draft 2 guys that both have to kick inside the guard, and you got 2 good guards. I would just say that this draft, it doesn't have clear-cut stars, especially at tackle, but it has a lot of really good players that can play inside and outside. So if, again, like Brian talked about it, he feels good about Campbell at tackle. If you feel that way, take a tackle and then take an interior. I'm perfectly fine with that. You got so many guys that can do both. But yeah, no, if New England had a chance to get him in the second,
So, Brian, if you were New England and you were in that situation, what would be if you took Campbell in round 2, what do you think you'd do in round 3?
Just take the next best offensive lineman, guard, center, whatever, because, again, you don't know. You're still taking Campbell knowing that he may end up at guard, he may end up to stay at tackle.
Yep.
So I would just take the next best offensive lineman, whoever it is.
Got it. Okay, so now let's flash back to, first of all, we're also talking a variation on a player where we could project him to go top 10, and I just projected him to fall to round 2. And yes, you heard me say that, right? That, to me, there's going to be variation on the evaluation, right? As far as like, well, do you take a guard that high? Exactly. And that's actually my next question. So Skoronski was a college tackle, moved to guard at Tennessee, and Skoronski was a top 10 pick, correct? Or was that like 11 or 12?
In that area.
He was in that area. Okay, so I'm in the ballpark. How would you compare Campbell to Skoronski?
Good question.
He was pick 11.
Thank you.
10, 11, 12, no. That's a good question. I don't know. Kind of similar, but I think at least to me, when I watched Skoronski when he was coming out, to me he was for sure a guard in the NFL. I mean, yeah, you could probably play him a tackle, emergency, injury type of situation type of thing. But to me, he was for sure a guard, especially the length. The length was, I think he had 32-inch arms or 32.5-inch arms, something like that. Yeah, but I think you can view them kind of somewhat similar. And then also Skoronski kind of had that guard mentality, again, bury you in the ground type of guy. But I still think it's somewhat similar in situations where I think, you take him and just see where he fits type of thing. So, yeah, of course I would have no issue with anybody taking Campbell at, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah. Okay. Jacob, what do you think?
32.25-inch arms for Peter Skoronski. So yeah. That's exactly. I remember him coming out and people saying exactly what you just said about him. And Brian was just like, I had no problem taking him because it was very definitively, we're not sure what he's going to play. I think they announced him as a tackle at the draft, that kind of thing. But it was like, I don't remember. I probably made that up. I was just guessing. If you look at it, I was looking up his measurables, and it does say offensive tackle on his combine profile from the NFL. So that's what I was thinking about. But I do remember that, like, I remember listening to draft podcasts that were like, you draft him because he's a good football player, and then you figure out where to play him. And that's the same conversation I think we're having right now about Bo Campbell. It's like, dude can play, get him in the building, figure out where he plays. I think that's kind of the same thing with both of them.
Okay, so we will close out the podcast. So I'm going to give one more question to each of the guys, but before we do that question, please subscribe to the YouTube station. Please like the video on YouTube. Follow on Twitter. Brian, you want to tell everybody how they can find you?
Yeah, of course. Just at BMoff the NFL. Of course, on Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky as well. I don't post as much on Blue Sky, but I try to occasionally because it seems a lot of football people are kind of moving to Blue Sky. Of course, there, and then I also do some writings for Gridiron Heroics. I usually do draft stuff and a little bit of college football stuff. I just recently had a stock report, I guess you call it, article come out the other day, so that's up there. You can check that out. And then I'll probably be writing for the Cheesehead TV Draft Guide when that gets started.
Cool. And Jacob, you want to tell everybody how to find you?
You can find me on X at Roachism13. It's on the screen right there. I am on Blue Sky as well, but I forget that it exists most of the time. So, like, I'll go like 3 days without posting. I was like, oh, crap, it's supposed to put the stuff over there. Written work is at theobr.com. Do the draft and some fantasy football stuff for the Browns over there. And then you can find me on the OBR's YouTube channel as well. I do draft videos every Saturday on there. Yeah, which is youtube.com/@theorangeandbrown report.
Okay. Well, and on this channel, we have daily draft content. So as Brian, Jacob, and I sit here, it is Saturday morning, but this will air probably on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. So the final question on Will Campbell, give a floor ceiling, or the floor is he won't go higher than this. Ceiling, I should say, ceiling is he won't be drafted higher than this. So, like, is he going to go 3, 4, 5 in the draft? And then floor, how far down the board would he drop before he gets picked? So, Brian, like, how high would you take him? How low could you see him drop?
I think the highest, I think in that kind of in that Skoronski range, 10, 11, 12, that type of range would be the highest. How far as how low I think he's going to get? I don't think he's going to get past like early 20s, 2021, okay. Something like that. I've exactly picking up the spots, but yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he could get to the top 8. I think is probably as high as he goes, and I think a lot of that has to do with, does Kelvin Banks come off? When does he come off the board? Because I think he's, just for me, he's a tackle. I know a lot of people kind of have had that argument with him, just like they did with Campbell, just for different reasons as to why he goes inside or outside. And so I think if he goes off the board and then you're like, I do think he's a tackle, and you might go into the top. He might go in the top 10. I don't think he gets past like 28. Like, I don't think he makes it to the 30s, because you know, it's always funny with I always love to pull up like the PFF mock draft simulator so that I can look at their data when I'm doing a lot of these articles and stuff, and be like, oh, this amount of pressures and this and things like that. And once you start getting into like the 20s, you see a lot of them, that little need being guard. It just always seems like that's where those guys are. They have good tackles, but they need interior help. And I think you start getting into that with like, San Francisco would make a ton of sense if he falls a little bit and they're in the teens and things like that. So I think I'm pretty confident he goes top 25 at worst.
Cool. Okay. Well, we are going to close out the podcast. Brian, Jacob, thank you very much for waking up early on a Saturday morning to do this. And you will be able to see daily draft content. We have content on the draft every day of the week. Some days it's 2 or 3 shows. I think you might see Jacob again on, was it Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So this probably will air on Tuesday, and you will then see Jacob tomorrow. So
You're welcome, and my mustache.
yes. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mrs. R Relevant, the daily draft podcast brought to you by the Draft Professor Podcast Network. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Please hit the like button on YouTube. Follow the Draft Professor page on Twitter at NFL Draft Fanatic. There is no I am fanatic. We have content coming to you every day. You can see some of the people delivering that daily content to you on the slide now. Find them on Twitter. Give them a follow. There's always good dialogue on Twitter, and that's how you can find even more draft content than you saw in this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.